Hey noobs, Mr. Frog here. There is something uniquely satisfying about point-and-click adventure games. It is difficult to beat the excitement of exploring a new world, solving puzzles, and meeting interesting characters. Well, if that sounds interesting to you, then you may enjoy today's video, as today we are going to be taking a look at Aurelia, a retro-style adventure game set in a fantasy world filled with not only magic and mysteries, but also plenty of beautiful maidens. The game is developed by Mirthroll Games, published by Critical Bliss, and is available on Steam with no additional patches required before playing. In the game, you play as a young man who travels to the land of Aurelia with hopes of starting your own life in an old cottage that you inherit from your grandfather. Upon arrival, you come across a strange amulet inside that reacts strongly to your touch and completely knocks you out. You wake up in your cottage a few days later to find a strange woman named Ivy inside who claims that she owns the amulet and has actually been staying in the cottage for some time since she thought it was abandoned. As the gentleman you are, you agree to let this beautiful woman continue staying with you to further study the amulet and the effects that it had on you. Thus begins your life in Aurelia, where you will not only uncover the secrets of the amulet, but also go on tons of other adventures and odd jobs as well. You start out with small tasks, such as assisting the townsfolk and tending to your land, but as you explore more of Aurelia and meet more of its people, so too will the scale of your adventures increase. The game does have a major overarching main storyline that focuses mostly on the amulet and Ivy, but each of the other characters in the game will also have their own individual story paths as well that you can freely progress as you please. It is a very open game with little handholding or linear structure, and instead allows you the freedom to decide what to do and where to explore. Making progress in one of the storylines also does not lock you out of the other ones either, so you do not have to stress over missing out on any of the content, making wrong choices, or even missing a scene with your favorite girl. There are tons of places to explore and plenty of characters to interact with, all with their own interesting backstories and personalities. The stories are well written, and the game strikes a good balance of subtle humor and a more serious tone when appropriate. The fantasy world it provides, while limited in scope to one region, is well crafted and interesting to explore with beautiful retro-stylized pixel artwork that will make you feel nostalgic for older style point-and-click adventure games. Characters will often reference each other in other regions, making the world feel very much alive and real despite being compromised of mostly static images. As for the gameplay, it starts out as a simple point-and-click adventure game where you move around between static rooms and interact with the various characters and objects within them, but eventually begins to introduce other forms of gameplay as well. Most importantly though, this game is fully one-hand playable. As you talk to characters, you will gather information that will unlock additional actions, areas to explore, and quests to progress. At first, you will mostly talk with Ivy and the local villagers, but as they send you out on quests, or request items from certain areas, you will also encounter further characters and items that branch out into further quests as well. It's a well-crafted system that plays out similar to a puzzle game that rewards you for making subtle connections and exploring around. The game combines RPG elements as well, with most actions earning you XP and allowing you to spend skill points upon leveling up to upgrade your various stats. You can choose to upgrade your more combat-focused stats, such as magic and health, or work on power, agility, and luck to make performing actions easier. Aside from the point-and-click mechanics, the game also contains tons of additional minigames that branch out into plenty of other genres, such as arcade wave defense, RPG dungeon crawler, tabletop blackjack, and many more. The minigames are admittedly a bit simple in nature, with the dungeon crawler one probably being the most fleshed out and well done, but they never overstay their welcome, and by the time that you begin to get bored of them, you will likely have completed the relevant story segments associated with them and can move on to the next one. In addition to the minigames, you can also farm, fish, and gather materials for occasional potion making and crafting for quests. There really is a lot to do in the game, and you are free to come and do any of the content as you please, so the game rarely feels stale or repetitive. You can spend one day focused on fishing and farming, and then maybe mix it up a bit by spending the next day dungeon crawling for gold and loot. Or if you are like me though, you may end up spending several hours just playing blackjack at the bar. It is really up to you how you would like to spend your time in Aurelia, and a lot of it is entirely optional too, so if you are really not interested in one of the characters or stories, you can just proceed to move on to another one. How you'd like to spend your time is up to you, so chances are you will likely just focus on doing whatever is required to progress the story for your favorite waifu, so that you can experience the real content of this game, the H content. The H content in Aurelia is mostly done through a combination of both static and animated CGs. The majority of scenes are received by progressing either the main story or one of the various side stories involving any of the different heroines. There are over a dozen different story paths, with quite a few of them being centered around monster girls, so if you are a monster girl enjoyer out there, you will more than likely be very satisfied, but there are also more normal and traditional options as well, such as an elf and dwarf, for people that prefer more normal options. Aside from the story scenes, the Dungeon Crawler minigame also allows you to unlock scenes with each of the enemies you encounter. The large majority of these are monster girls as well though, but they are pretty well done and I was surprised with just how many there were. It is truly an impressive amount of H content, and it delivers on both quality and quantity in my opinion. The scenes are well written, with a good amount of variation in types of scenes, and creative and fun setups, so that the scenes feel very natural when they occur. The art is also highly detailed, well beyond what you may normally expect for a retro-style pixel game. With that being said though, it is pixel artwork done in a more Western style, so do keep this in mind if you are not a fan of retro or Western art styles. I will say though that as someone myself who does prefer non-Western H games, I will say I was truly impressed with both the art and gameplay in this one. Overall, Aurelia provides a fantastic experience for those fond of point-and-click adventure games. Probably one of my only critiques would be the lack of variation in facial expressions during some of the dialogue scenes. Many of these scenes can feel kind of stiff due to the character's limited movement and gesturing, but I do think that the game nails this where it really matters for the H content. Gameplay-wise, I honestly have few complaints, as I had a great time exploring and figuring out how to solve some of the puzzles and proceed the story. The game has little hand-holding and mostly leaves you to your own devices, but if you are ever unsure how to proceed, you can always check your journal to get a good idea of who to talk to or where to go. The minigames, while being simple and a bit lacking in depth, are plentiful and varied enough to be fun for just the right amount of time before you start to get bored with them, and then you can move on to the next one. The entire world of Aurelia connects together in a very natural way as well, where everything you do feels like it's progressing towards something or building towards a larger goal. It is a delightful game with tons of content that should offer a little bit of something for everyone of all tastes. If you haven't tried this one out yet, I highly recommend giving it a shot. With that being said, Mr. Frog awards this game a strong chug of approval. Have you played this game? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you'd like to see more H-game content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure to check out the Mr. Frog stream over on Twitch. Later, noobs.